Police in Las Vegas found themselves in the middle of a UFO mystery last month after
Right across the yard.
To us, big eyes. They have big eyes.
911, what are you reporting?
We got someone or something crawling around out here.
Did you see what it was? Was it a person or an animal? Or?
And welcome to another excellent episode of the Mythical Legends podcast. So we have another amazing episode lined up. One of my best friends in America is going to be with us today, and talking about some amazing stuff. So before we get into our guest, our co-host is going to be Chris Alsford, co-founder of the UK BRT, UK Bigfoot Research Team, and shortly to be a partner in some other interesting stuff coming in beginning of January. So we have some brilliant stuff coming in next year. So I'm gonna add our co-host on, and let's have a chat to him. Hey mate, how are you?
Not bad, buddy. How are you?
I'm very, very well. A bit tired from Christmas shopping all day today.
I'll let Amazon carry the can, I do.
So we have a very, very good guest today, don't we?
Joe. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's an amazing guest and a very, very good friend of mine. So if we say a little bit about this guest, so he's a USAF veteran, a naturalist, and a field investigator. Joe Perdue. I'm bringing him on, and we're gonna have an amazing conversation. Hey, mate.
What's going on, everybody?
How are you, mate?
Hey, Joe.
Doing great. How are you guys?
We are very, very well. It's a bit cold here in the UK, Joe. Say I'm in a very, very nice warm room, but very, very cold outside.
We're about 60 degrees Fahrenheit here today. Yesterday we were in the 30s, and then tomorrow we've got snow coming. So we've got a reprieve with some nice 60-degree weather today, and then tomorrow we've got snow on the horizon.
So do you guys see snow often in the winter?
Oh yeah. Our ground is covered with snow more often than it's not, from about the middle of December till about February.
Wow.
And then we'll warm up a little bit. We have like a false spring, and then in March it's just going to get freezing cold again. We'll be down in the teens a few weeks, and then it'll start warming back up gradually.
Amazing, mate. Say here in the UK, and Chris, you can kind of back me up on this. There's no snow; it's just bloody free.
There's some snow up in the mountains. Some, not much.
Yeah. Say let's jump straight into it then, Joe. Could you tell me a little bit about how you got interested into the cryptid world?
Well, I grew up, just like everybody who is my age and older, watching the television programs like Sightings and the Unsolved Mysteries and the TV show with Leonard Nimoy, In Search Of, and seeing all of that stuff. And I watched it with my grandmother, and she really instilled this interest in me. And growing up out in the forest where everything seemed to be mystical and a mystery, because where I live is just really tight foothills and mountains all around us. It's very little flat land here in our state. And so it's very easy to see where there could be a mystical world or some kind of fantastical existence of things out there when you're young, because the wilderness here is so vast.
Yeah, and whereabouts you based, mate?
We are in West Virginia. Is where we do most of our research with the West Virginia High Strangeness Collective. I own a business called Wild and Weird West Virginia, and that kind of funds and puts all of the gasoline into what we do on the research end of things. So that way, it's less of a blow up front on us financially. So we manufacture things like these little guys, and we sell those little trinkets on the road at different shows and online, and that helps fund what we do.
Oh, amazing, mate. And I think both me and Chris need a little bit of luck with money because at the moment we have none.
Hey, it all starts that way, man. And the thing is, you don't need a whole lot when you just get started into this, and you really don't need a lot in the deep thick of it either. You know, some of this hardware and some of this equipment is a nicety, but it's not a necessity. The biggest things that you have at your disposal are your eyes, your ears, and a pen.
Yeah. Say I will say that my brain tells me you need this equipment, and if you don't, then it's just the end of the world. And I think when you get into this world, you kind of go that way first. But then now, you don't need a whole lot. It's like
No.
I went from carrying about 15 bags for my first expedition to now just the one big hiking bag, and I don't have an awful lot in it. I have my normal cameras and plaster of Paris, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Because you don't need a lot just to go out looking in the forest, do you?
No, you don't. It's the biggest thing that you might have to spend money on when you first start out is like a waterproof notepad. So that way you can write in the rain and your notes won't get destroyed. That's one of the things I usually recommend to people is get a decent waterproof notepad and just a little flip pad. It costs around here in the US about $12.99 US dollars, and it's you get a fairly good little notepad.
Oh, amazing, mate. I am actually going to write that down myself because that sounds like a very, very good. Do you get that from Amazon?
Yeah, you can find them on Amazon, or if you have a an outfitter near you that does outdoor equipment for hiking or backpacking, you'll probably find it there, like a sporting goods place.
Amazing, mate. And to everyone out there that is kind of listening in, I would say that is probably the most amazing advice you would be given is a notepad and a pen. Now, when I first went out in the forest, I didn't listen to that because I believe you needed about 15 to 20 different bags, and within probably 2 months, my partner in crime has said, "No, we're taking this much because I'm not carrying anything else."
Yeah. Hey, give me 1 second. I'm going to have to cut for a moment and send my.
So, Joe, could you tell us a little bit about your own podcast called Wild and Weird Radio?
Yeah, we've been on the show now for about going on 4 years, and it'll be 4 years next month, I think, or the month after that. But it's a broad scoping show. We cover everything from UFOs, paranormal, Bigfoot, other cryptids, sighting reports, interviews, you name it, we do it.
Oh wow, mate. Say, do you do your own podcast where it's just your voice, as in just you?
No, not just me. It's always with my co-host Ron Lanham, and occasionally we've got a third seat sitting with us. Normally we try to keep someone in the third seat, but it just depends on their schedule and things like that. But me and Ron are always there, and we've got so it's just an audio podcast. You can find us anywhere where podcasts are found, or you can go over to YouTube and just look up Wild and Weird WV, and it'll bring you to our channel, and that will show you our podcast as well as other investigation videos.
Oh, amazing. And that brings me on to kind of a different kind of question. When you mentioned the word paranormal, what does that mean to you?
Anything that's not normal. It could be strange lights in the forest. It can be lights in your house. It could be ghosts, spooks, anything that you would call the Ghostbusters for if you needed to. But basically it's anything that doesn't readily make sense, any kind of strange and unusual phenomena. So if for example, there have been people who have been out at their house and they'll lose something, and that item will be missing for months, and then they'll just be walking through their house and they'll hear it fall on the floor, and they'll turn around and find something in the middle of the floor behind them, and that's the thing they've been looking for months. So that's a phenomena that's called apporting. And that's something that we would investigate. We would go check for strange radiation readings, look for any kind of weird EMF, just anything that was outside of normal parameters.
Oh, cool. So a lot of people associate the word paranormal with ghosts and your spirits and kind of that side of stuff.
Yeah.
And actually, it's not. It's anything that is kind of not normal, right, as you say.
Yeah, and a lot of that's attributed to television. You have paranormal TV, and it's all your ghost hunters. Ghost hunters, yeah, psychics, things like that. That's what you're going to see on Travel Channel and Discovery Channel under the paranormal listing.
What is your opinion on these TV programs?
Well,
how much do you reckon is legit?
A very, very small percentage. Very small percentage. If you want to see what it's really like when you go out doing any kind of paranormal research, for example, you can go look up Small Town Monsters and look at their Sasquatch Unearthed and go to the latest episode. We're in that one. We take the team out Bigfooting, and we basically just sit in the dark for hours because nothing happens. That's what real Bigfoot or paranormal TV would be like, and that's just not entertaining. Nobody wants to sit and watch me just sit and twiddle my thumbs and stare off into the dark.
So yeah, and it's like with a lot of the programs, Bigfoot wise, that I've watched, they found a Bigfoot every episode.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah, it's something else, man. There's a lot of areas that do have activity, and I don't recommend doing the tactics that you see on TV, simply because you can ruin a research area really fast if you're out there just beating on trees and howling into the night. But if you are in an area that you're just doing a quick and dirty investigation in, yeah, give it a shot. But I don't recommend it.
So it wouldn't be also the wisest idea is if you went in banging and clashing and this creature got annoyed, it's still 8 feet tall. And
yeah, right.
People have got to remember that it's still 8 feet tall.
One of the main reasons that we don't do it is we don't know what it means.
Yeah.
We don't know what we're doing and what it will cause, We don't know what the wood knock sound is. We don't even know if it's really truly a wood knock and not some kind of mouth noise that's being made. But we definitely don't know what the howls mean. We don't know what these strange calls are at all. It could be a pretty broad list of things that would wind up getting us ran out of the forest.
Yeah, and say if I played a sound out there and something came out, I would curl up and die. I would. I honestly would. I honestly would, and that's the 100% truth.
Oh,
Because
man.
because if an 8 feet tall something stood in front of me and repeated that sound at me, yeah, I wouldn't like it very much.
You got to be ready for whatever's going to come at you when you start knocking on the door.
Yeah.
And that goes for Bigfoot. It goes for ghost hunting. It goes for going out and looking for UFOs.
Yeah, and it's like when we have played a sound once, and when we played that sound, and it sounded crazy, Joe. I mean, I said to Jill, the partner woman, I turned to her and went, "This creature may come out in front of us, and if it does, I'm faster than you, so I'm gonna run, and then I'll let." And it's like you do have to kind of be prepared for this creature to come out if you're playing sounds that it might be aggressive towards, and that's why it's not the best thing to do.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. So right. So I'm gonna move on to my next kind of question. Now I don't know much about this. So to my understanding, you are co-founder of the West Virginia High Strangeness Collective. Mouthful there. Could you tell us a little bit about it, mate?
We were founded in 2018. It was a group of researchers with of various backgrounds. I was the Bigfoot guy. Ron was the UFO and paranormal, like ghost hunter guy. Then we had another guy named Dave, who was also a ghost hunter, but he was into he studies the universe. He's he's got like a $8,000 telescope that sits on his back porch, and he takes these high resolution photographs of other galaxies. So he's real big into that kind of stuff. We have another individual named Beth who's more into the Bigfoot stuff as well, and she's out in the field. It was a collective group, right? You know, we all have our own various disciplines. We could field Bigfoot, we could field hauntings, we could do UFO sightings and investigations on all of that stuff. So we called ourselves the High Strangeness Collective because none of those things are normal. It falls under the realm of high strangeness because Bigfoot shouldn't be there. Theoretically, UFOs, we shouldn't be having those things show up. Hauntings are very strange. When you have any of these happening in correlation with one another, then it gets really bizarre and really strange. So that's high strangeness. So we cover it all. We look at all these reports, regardless of how outlandish they might seem. If we can vet the witness and vet their credibility, we're going to go take a look and we're going to investigate. And the reason we called it a collective is because we shared data with researchers, well, from the UK and from all other parts of the world in the United States. We shared data with Cliff Barackman, Matt Moneymaker, all those big names you know from the Bigfoot TV world. Same thing with all the big names you know from the UFO world. We're connected with those guys as well, and we share data back and forth with them.
Wow. So on that note, Joe, I have been in contact with Cliff Barackman, so I'll say thank you so much for that.
Pause.
On
track.
So, Joe, could you tell us, do you go out and do your own research in the field by yourself, or do you really?
Yeah, I'm actually out by myself more often than I'm with another person. Sometimes my wife will be with me, but normally it's just me going out into the woods, because to try to line everybody's schedules up to be able to go, you have to coordinate that out. And the way my life is, I don't always have the opportunity to just say, oh, well, I'm going to go out on this day at this time, because I don't know what it's going to be. I don't know what's going to happen. It's, oh, I have a moment. I've got a few hours. I'm getting out there. I'm going to go and go around the forest and do a few miles and check things out and go out to one of the areas we've had activity in and see if there's anything I can find.
Oh, amazing, mate. And if I ask you this question, is it better when you are by yourself or with one other person? Do you find you get a lot more done?
For me, okay, so for me personally, I get a lot more done when I'm by myself because I'm not answering questions. I'm just 100% focused in go mode. You know, I don't have to stop and slow down to let somebody else catch their breath. I don't have to. I can just go, and it's not always the best, but it's nice when I do have someone there to help corroborate what we did find, if we found anything. You know, many of the times that I've casted footprints, I've been the only one out there in the forest. And
Wow.
of probably the 12 casts or so that we take on our table when we go out and do these appearances and such, those casts I've found 90% of them by myself. There was only one on the table that I cast with somebody else there, other than a bear print. There was somebody there with me when Ron was with me when we cast a big bear print. But with the other tracks, you know, there's only one other one that was with my wife.
Wow. Oh, amazing, mate. So, Chris, you have a question for Joe?
Yeah, just where you said about off in the forest on your own. I'm wondering how you feel about the gifting thing. That people, do you take part in that, or do you have any success with it?
I've only had a negative reaction with the gifting. Well, kind of, sort of negative. We own a farm, and we were out there a few years back, and our family goes out there all the time, and usually there's always leftover scrap food thrown out. And I'm a classically trained chef. I usually don't have leftovers when I cook because I cook to the portion for how many people we have. So I'll only have a very small amount of leftovers, and those normally get picked off later in the afternoon or in the evening. So there wasn't any food being thrown out. And these things did not like that. So we had some very strange activity going. We heard the samurai chatter. We had Ron actually had his sighting that night. That was his first real encounter, was that night. He had a sighting. It was a really intense night. And then the other experience that I had with it was a little bit more neutral. There was a stump that I was always walking by, and I would always put like an apple or something on it. If I'd been eating an apple or something, took a few bites of it, didn't really, I always, if I left an apple or food, I'd always take a bite out of it and leave it. I didn't just leave a plain straight apple. But I came back, and in that exact location, shoved down into the stump, was a pristine turkey feather. And it was shoved down into the stump, like pointing up.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's impressive.
Yeah, that was the new what I call the neutral take, where I've had that happen. So
wow, amazing, mate. And I will go straight on to then. Could you tell us about your Bigfoot encounters and experiences?
Yeah, so over the years we've had several encounters with, hearing things or having strange things happen. But in 2001, what really got me started on this whole scope of looking into what is actually out there, because I wanted answers for my own sighting, was it was in September of 2001, and I was on family land. We were out there where I lived, and I'd always hunted this area. And so I went to it, and I'm trying to tell you the Campbell's condensed version, because there's a lot of details, a lot of information. And the reason I remember all these details is because I wrote it all down. As soon as I got back to the house, I wrote everything down. So anyway, whenever I got to the ridge top, I started walking down, because I rode a 4-wheeler up and then walked in. And I walked into my spot, which was a really broad laurel or rhododendron thicket. And I used it as a natural hunting blind, because the adjacent ridge or the adjacent hillside had been timbered, and there weren't any large mature trees. It was all just small undergrowth and berries and things like that, things that make good food. Well, when I was going into it, I thought that I saw a black bear, and I was like, oh, this is cool. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to just sit in the thicket, and I'm going to watch this black bear root around and eat, and then I'll go back home. Well, when I got situated, I realized really quick that it wasn't a black bear. It was a small Bigfoot creature. It's the reason I call it a Bigfoot is because it's the best description I can have for it. You know, it fits all the sightings that we've been reported and all the stuff you see on TV and such. And this thing was playing. It was like doing these little terrible cartwheels, you know, like what you'd see with a toddler, where this thing would go down and put its hands on the ground, but its feet would never really get more than horizontal. Its feet weren't going up and doing the big cartwheel. It was just like going hands and then the feet, and then would spin, and was that behaving like a kid. And then I saw some subtle movement up to the right, and I saw two other large creatures, and they were sitting down, haunched down on the one of the steps, and they were digging at the ground, and one was digging at a fallen tree. Looking back now, you know, using the master naturalist training and all the wildlife study that I've done, the big one was ripping at an old rotted tree that was left by the timber company, because it was probably a deadfall when the timber company came in, and they left it behind. So it's now infested with termites and other insects. It's been rotted. It's got worms and grubs and all these other protein sources in it. And then the female was over there digging in an area that I had planted turnips and carrots, because deer like those things. And I try to have an area where the food was hospitable and I could get in easily, hunt, take a deer to eat, and then go home. You know, this thing was digging up my plot and had, made short work of it, apparently. But this sighting was very brief. It didn't last a long time. There was just a lot of data that was able to be collected because I wrote everything down. And I can't stress that enough. Write everything down as soon as you possibly can, because our memory is malleable. Our memory, every time we bring something back to recollection, we're remembering the memory of the memory, not the actual memory of itself. So we can insert our own details. We can take pieces of reality and pieces of data that we've now learned, and we can mesh those together. And that's not always the best. You want the pure data as quick as you can get it. So basically the wind had shifted. I felt the wind hit my neck, and I was like, oh man, I'm going to be made now. And the biggest one stood up, and it raised its head. I only saw like like this much of its face, you know, because it had its back to me. And it turned its head like that, and that's when I saw that part of its face. And I'm assuming, based off what I know now, that this thing made a sound that I could not hear, and it, the little one and the other medium-sized one, went closer to it, and then they walked off into the forest, and they just walked out of sight. I waited until they were gone and that I couldn't see or hear anything anymore. And then I turned around and I went straight back to the four-wheeler and back home. I did not go back to that area for a year. I didn't hunt that year. I didn't go back out. And I waited until the following year when snow was on the ground and all the leaves were off the trees. So that way I could see anything that was contrasting to the snow. And I would also be able to see anything that was moving very easily, because it freaked me out. I was really unnerved by the whole thing. And then that was my first sighting. Then I had my second, what I call a confirmed sighting, just about a month ago. And I used my talk to text app to record all of the data, because I'm a chef and I was out at a wedding catering when this happened. We were leaving. This was an outdoor wedding. It had a DJ, it had the food, obviously. It had lots of lights. So there was sound, lights, and scent, and all kinds of attractant that you would need for some kind of a wild creature, right? When I was leaving, I saw something that I was like, oh, that's a weird place for a topiary, because there were some topiaries around the cabin area where the wedding venue was. And I was like, that's a weird place for a topiary. Wonder why that's there. And then my headlights hit it, and it was a blonde hair collared creature. And it was about 6 to 6'6". So 6'6", 6.5 foot tall. And when my headlights hit it, that is when it took a sidestep and turned. Like I saw a full body of this thing, and it turned to the side and stepped and started walking into the brush. The brush was about up to mid thigh, and it moved through it like a tank. And this was thick, dense briars and brush. You know, if I'd have moved through it, it would have cut my jeans up. But this thing just went through it like a tank. And then, you know, we're looking at, hold on. So I saw a really good profile of the body. This thing was in thigh deep brush. It moved through it like a tank. I had a caravan of people behind me. These were all people that were on my payroll. They're being paid by the hour very well. And I know at minimum, it's going to cost me a lot of money and a lot of time, because it's going to take me at least 2 to 3 hours to do a proper investigation on this area. And I'm by myself. Well, I'm not by myself. I have a whole bunch of employees. I wasn't going to be like, all right, guys, you're all Bigfoot researchers now. Because I wanted to get them home. Needed to get them off the clock. The owner of the business was not going to be cool with me going out and doing this. And I was their only hope of getting out of this holler alive, because it was a gravel 1-lane road for like 4 miles, and none of them knew their way out. I was the only one that knew the way. So I had to lead them out. So I did the talk to text app and recorded every bit of data that I could. And that way it was fresh. It was right then in the moment. The passenger in my truck saw something too. You know, so I wasn't the only one that seen it. It was the passenger, because I had somebody riding with me. And yeah, it was really, really weird, you know, and its hair was kind of wet because it had been raining. And I saw this, the hand, like the left hand. I saw the left hand clear as day. As it was walking away, I'm stepped out of my truck door and I'm looking at it. I've got lights on it, and I saw its hand clear as day. And the fingers.
Was it like a human hand?
Yeah, the fingers were thinner than what I'd seen. Like, you know, I've got a hand track cast right here over my shoulder. That guy.
Oh yeah.
And the fingers in that, like, mind you, that creature could have been larger, but the fingers in that had to have done one of these, because what I saw, the fingers were big, they were long, but they weren't as wide as some of the track casts of hands that I've seen. And the thumb, based off that, the thumb is right where it should have been. So I think that's a very authentic track, especially now, because the thumb, like where our thumb attaches right here, if you could detach this area and move it in a little bit and back. So if we were able to move this joint of our thumb to about 1 inch to the interior of our wrist and put our thumb there, this thing would have only been able to grip like this. So yes, it has a thumb, but that thumb is not going to be like a prehensile thumb, like we're picking up a cup. You know, this thing's going to be more of a gripping motion like this. It's a very, very ape-like hand, early human hand, relatominid, whatever you want to call it. So that was very much an ape-like creature, but the face looked more human, just like the first ones that I'd seen. It didn't have this monkey face. It was a more human-like face, and I tried to capture that. This is a statue that I made years ago, and I tried to capture some of those features in this face where it looks more human than ape. It's got some of the ape features. it has some of the ape features, like the bigger lip area, the skin, like longer distance between the nose and the upper lip, that kind of thing. But overall, the face was more human.
Wow.
And
Say, did you see eyes?
not with this one. Like I saw where the eyes would be, but like I didn't see. I can't tell you what color it was. You know.
Okay.
Because it was too much of a distance to be able to tell. It just looked shadowed because the sun. We were already into about 30 minutes into dusk when we were leaving. So it was the light. The only light that was hitting it was from my truck, and that was casting a lot of shadows.
Yeah. Say, mate. That reminds me of kind of when people do say there are different colored Bigfoots. Now I've brought this up quite a few times on the podcast where we've said it's like humans. We all have different colored hair, or some of us have different color hair,
or you know, some of us are, you know, hair
less.
Yeah.
And it's like and it's like we all have different color skin, and it's like it reminds you of what Bigfoot has been said to be. In Alaska, they've said they've seen like white hairs.
Yeah.
You just said that it's kind of a blondie kind type of thing. Some have said black. It's a really interesting
The three
topic
that
when
I
you
had
delve
seen,
deep.
the three that I had seen first were all different colors. The smallest one was black as black could be. That's why I thought it was a black bear. The two bigger ones were more of an auburny, dark brown with a little bit of red in them. And then the other one was more red than brown. But they were both had that kind of dark auburn kind of red color.
Say that's why also I take a partner out in the field, because I'm colorblind and it sucks sometimes.
You wouldn't believe it. This thing was green.
Yeah.
honestly, I had a dog probably about 5 years ago now, and we had them since I was alive, and I thought that dog was green. Honestly, I swear to God, I thought that dog was green. And when he passed away, I went, "Oh, I missed that green dog," and they went, "No, it's brown." Okay. So my whole life, I've thought it's green.
Yeah.
And it's like I now have two new dogs, and and when I first looked at it, I went, "That's not golden. It's green." And they went, It's golden, Daniel. It is golden." I go, okay.
That's hilarious.
So it's when it comes to colours out in the field, that's something that kind of puts you on a barrier, but don't put you on too much of a barrier, which is nice. Yeah. So I'm going to ask you one more question, Joe, and that question is going to be: what is the most important piece of advice you would give to someone who is starting to research Bigfoot?
Do not get Bigfoot on the brain. When you get Bigfoot on the brain, you go out into the forest and you look at everything, and it's all Bigfoot. You'll see a pile of sticks. Bigfoot did it. You'll see tree breaks that are 12 to 15 feet up in the air. Bigfoot did it. 99.9% of the time, Bigfoot didn't do that. Storm damage. You know, you're in a forest. They have the same storms that we have here. If your power went out, odds are the wind was strong enough to knock trees over. We have snow here, and a lot of the times that snow starts off as rain, and then the rain turns to freezing rain, and that gets really heavy because that will just all the tree branches that are normally at this angle will start to droop and go down, and then you pile more snow on top of that, and now you've created a a weight that is far too much for that branch to bear, and it snaps off. Be alert, be vigilant, write everything down, and be honest. That's the biggest thing. Be honest. Don't try to go out there and say everything's Bigfoot or post up pictures saying that could this be Bigfoot. If you have to ask could it be Bigfoot, odds are it's not. If it's something that is truly anomalous and something that really truly shouldn't be there and is out of place, it's going to strike you immediately. This isn't normal. And then take note of that. But take note of all the other stuff. Take pictures of what natural breaks look like. There's organizations like Boy Scouts that go out and they build primitive shelters in the woods. Little kids did that, not Bigfoot. But I can't tell you how many of those primitive shelters I see out in the forest, around state parks, around these wildlife management areas. You'll see a lot of that because that's where the Boy Scouts go. If I find one of those 15 miles deep into the bush, I take note of that because normal people aren't doing that deep. They're not going that deep into an interior of a wilderness area to build something like that and leave it. If I see that, then I'm interested. But otherwise, So just be honest with yourself, be honest with your data, follow the data, and do not let your own biases sway your data.
Some amazing advice there, Joe. And I will say, I have taken a lot of that advice. Definitely, mate. I have.
I mean, we didn't win Bigfoot Researchers of the Year in 2022 for no reason, I mean, we're awesome. Oh no, man! It just getting that award really just means that we were the weirdest weirdos in the group of weirdos. So it's it's a badge of honor, but at the same time, like you don't go out publicly like, oh yeah, we were the Bigfoot Researchers of the Year, and they're like, oh, you are really odd. You're not just the guy with stickers on your truck. You're like, you're weird.
So Joe, mate, it's been an absolute pleasure to chat to you, and I think Chris will agree. You've been very, very, very interested, mate, this evening. So thank you so much.
Glad I was able to hop on and give you a decent show.
You are very, very, very welcome, mate. And to all our viewers out there who are watching, please don't forget to subscribe to Joe and Ron's show. I can guarantee I listened to an episode yesterday and it is amazing. So please go and listen. And don't forget to subscribe to the Mythical Legends podcast on Spotify, Amazon, YouTube, and any other podcast app that you can think of. But until then, guys, keep searching and stay mythical. Thank you so much, guys.